And we want to bring people back to cinema, get back to the theaters. It's been tough, on the movie industry for quite some time now, especially with streaming and everybody watching things on their phones and their tablets and whatnot.
In this day and age with folks having so much access to streaming and watching so many things on their phones, it's nice to have a format like IMAX that can be an experience you can only experience in the theaters,
We've been gone a long time. We back now. You twins?
Nah, we cousins.
Obviously, this is a great group to talk about your incredible two performances between Smoke and Stack. I mean, did you have a personal favorite between the two, or?
I had so much fun with both of them. It really depended on how tired I was that day. I think because I think Smoke, I got a chance to really be a little bit, he's a little grumpy, you know what I'm saying? Smoke's a little grumpy, so he can kind of lean in my tiredness a little bit more. Stack was a little bit more on upbeat and a little bit more, active, but it was interesting because, Smoke had this like divine connection, with Annie, but then, also had this kind of, this other dynamic with Mary, and the same thing goes for Stack. He had this intense relationship, with Mary, but then it had this kind of, best friend of the boyfriend that is not really like I'm not gonna get my brother in any more trouble. You know what I'm saying? I promise. So it was fun to play those dynamics, and they did an amazing job dealing with my crazy ass personalities and mood swings and all that good stuff.
Ryan, it feels sort of like obviously a movie only you could have made, and it feels so personal. And could you sort of explain how it is an expression of the things that you love in cinema?
Oh, for sure. I came up going to the movies in the '90s where every weekend there was something in there that felt exhilarating and it wasn't a lot of internet discourse in ways that you could spoil a movie for yourself, and you would just, you just show up and be taken away in a room full of strangers. Most of those films had like thrilling elements or horror elements, It was also like the VHS era, where my family would rent, tons of movies and have movie night and see who could stay up the longest, see who could watch the scariest movie on VHS, and later DVD. So I pulled from a lot of films that inspired me, and for me, I wanted to pay back, the theatrical audience. You know what I'm saying? Like the same things that I feel were poured into me, and a big part of that was the feeling of going to a movie and discovering a talent that you've never seen before. Just being blown away by somebody who kind of came out of nowhere. I had that experience watching True Grit with Hailee Steinfeld, and I do believe that we're gonna give audiences that same experience watching Miles in our film.
Brian, it's so cool that this was shot with IMAX cameras, and I'm sure that was a logistical challenge in and of itself. But tell me why that was the right choice, and if that was sort of like a fight you had to have to get that.
Well, it's interesting because I grew up shooting film. I learned how to make my first few movies on film, and at my film school, USC, School of Cinematic Arts, I was actually in the last class that had film use mandated. After that, everybody kind of went to digital photography for their student films, and I shot my first feature film on Super 16. My next 3 studio movies I wasn't able to shoot on film, so I knew I wanted to go back to celluloid for this movie because I was making a movie that was fully produced by my production company, Proximity. And so that I knew I was making film. I knew it would be a period piece and a horror movie. So I knew film made the most sense for that. But after getting into the research of the project and learning like the epic scale of the contribution of Delta Blues when it comes to global popular culture, like how this music kind of launched pop music as we know it internationally. I realized that this was a larger than life story. And right around that same time, a film executive named Jesse Ehrman from Warner Brothers called and checked in and asked if we considered large format photography. Just from an exhibition sense. In this day and age with folks having so much access to streaming and watching so many things on their phones, it's nice to have a format like IMAX that can be an experience you can only experience in the theaters. So it was a combination of all of those things. And I talked to my cinematographer, Autumn Arkapaw, about the possibility of shooting large format. And that's when we opened up the fact that we not only just shooting with IMAX film cameras, we also use an Ultra Panavision 70, which is an even rare format, of filmmaking. The last film to be released, shot on film, was Quentin Tarantino's Hateful Eight, in that widescreen format. So we're using these two formats for the very first time, and it really complements the story, really complements the setting. It really complements the filmmaking there.
Ryan's wrote the movie, shot the movie with large format, with IMAX in mind. So there's certain shots, there's sequences that are meant to be seen in an IMAX theater, an IMAX screen, and we want to bring people back to cinema, get back to the theaters. It's been tough, on the movie industry for quite some time now, especially with streaming and everybody watching things on their phones and their tablets and whatnot. But I think this is a movie that's meant to give, for the movie-going experience, a group of people, sitting in the theater with strangers and having a collective shared experience is what I love about films and watching movies. And especially when you're watching a film that you don't know exactly what you're going to get, but you're going to walk away with a lot. And I think this movie it takes you on a ride. It gives you a little bit of everything, and it has you wanting more from these characters and more from the movie, I'm so curious about the ones that survived, and I'm also curious about what were their lives like before that day started, So I thought that was really genius by Coog to make us feel that way.
Last night at the premiere, I think we all had this moment of we've been living with this for so long, and we're now at that moment where it's going to become everyone else's. And I think you start with this feeling of just hoping that they get from it the love and the joy that we had while making it. But there is so much to take away from this movie. I took so much away from the story and the script itself, but the experience that I had while making this. This film brought me closer to my family and my family history. I wish that I could call my grandfather, who's no longer with us, to ask him all the questions in the world that I walked away with after making this movie, and even after watching it last night. I think that it will serve as such an amazing conversation starter for people, and maybe encourage them to look into their genealogy and their family history.